Welcome to Ditch Relation Tales, where we unravel the most shocking family dramas and untold relationship stories you won't believe. Our parents never fostered love or connection between my sister and me. Instead, they encouraged rivalry, as if our achievements were trophies in their personal competition. Every milestone was another opportunity to compare us. If I excelled at school, my sister was scolded for not keeping up. If she shone in extracurriculars, I was pushed harder to outdo her. This constant dynamic bred resentment, and any bond we could have had disintegrated. As kids, we managed brief moments of unity, but those were fleeting. By high school, we had given up on pretending. Silence became our language, and avoiding each other was the only way to coexist. College brought the space I desperately needed. Away from her shadow and our parents' relentless comparisons, I finally began to flourish. My grades soared, I built friendships, and I discovered a sense of self-worth. Meanwhile, my sister, still at home, struggled through her final years of high school. We barely spoke, and I preferred it that way. When I graduated and moved in with my boyfriend, life felt free of the toxicity that had plagued me for so long. Little did I know, a single weekend would bring it all crashing back. I met my boyfriend during college, and after years of friendship, we began dating. He was my rock, my partner, and the kindest person I knew. Naturally, I wanted my family to meet him. When I invited him home one weekend, I was nervous but hopeful. Unfortunately, my sister was there too. She had just started college and was struggling. She hadn't gotten into her dream school, was failing to make friends, and spent more weekends at home than on campus. Her unhappiness was palpable, and I knew my presence only worsened it. That dinner was unbearable. From the start, my sister acted cold. Then, suddenly, her demeanor changed. She turned on her charm, directing all her attention to my boyfriend. At first, I brushed it off as her usual need for attention. But as the night went on, her behavior became impossible to ignore. She flirted with him, asked invasive questions, and laughed too loudly at his jokes. When she told him he deserved better than me, I snapped. I called her out, demanding she respect my relationship. Her reaction was chilling. With a smirk, she said, "Maybe he does." That was the final straw. My anger boiled over, and I lashed out. I called her a loser, pointing out how bitter she seemed about my success. My words stung, and I saw the hurt flash across her face. Before I could register what was happening, she lunged at me. She grabbed my hair and slapped me across the face. Shocked, I froze. But the fight escalated quickly, turning into a full-blown physical altercation. Our parents and my boyfriend had to pull us apart. By the time we were separated, we were both bruised and furious, screaming insults across the room. That night, as my boyfriend drove me home, I made a decision. I was done. My relationship with my sister was beyond repair. The rivalry that had defined our childhood had now destroyed any chance of reconciliation. The years that followed were peaceful. My sister and I didn't speak, and I didn't miss her presence in my life. Holidays were awkward, but we managed by avoiding each other entirely. My parents tried to mediate, hoping we'd reconcile, but I refused. They didn't understand the depth of the pain her actions had caused. I reminded them that they had contributed to our fractured relationship by fostering competition instead of resolving conflict. They apologized for their mistakes, but it felt hollow. For 6 years, I focused on building a life filled with love and positivity. I didn't need her negativity or drama. When I got engaged, I felt nothing but relief that she wouldn't be part of my wedding. Or so I thought. My bridal shower should have been a joyful celebration, but my parents ruined it by bringing my sister uninvited. The moment she walked in, the room went silent. I felt anger and betrayal surge through me. My parents, oblivious to my feelings, insisted it was time to move on. "It's been 6 years," they said, as if time alone could erase the pain. My sister stood there awkwardly, clearly unprepared for the confrontation. I couldn't stay silent. In front of everyone, I recounted the events of 6 years ago. I laid bare the humiliation and pain of her betrayal, explaining how she had destroyed any trust one had in her. My parents tried to interrupt, claiming I was being dramatic, but I refused to let them dismiss my feelings. My sister left, shaken and silent. My parents stayed behind, arguing that I needed to forgive and forget. Their lack of empathy only solidified my decision to keep them at arm's length. A few days after the bridal shower, my parents and sister arrived at my house unannounced. My fiancé and I were busy preparing for our upcoming wedding, and the last thing I wanted was another confrontation. Initially, I refused to let them in, but after some persuasion, I reluctantly agreed, determined to keep the conversation brief. As expected, my parents began with their usual demands. They insisted I reach out to my aunt, who had rescinded a job offer to my sister after learning about our estrangement. They blamed me for the opportunity slipping through my sister's hands, arguing that my recounting of the 6-year-old incident at the bridal shower had ruined her reputation. Their accusations stung, but I stood my ground, refusing to take responsibility for something I didn't control. Then, to my surprise, my sister interrupted them. She admitted that she hadn't come for the job or to argue. Instead, she was there to apologize. Her voice was hesitant but steady, and her words felt sincere. She explained how, for years, she had let jealousy and bitterness consume her. She described how our parents' constant comparisons had fueled her resentment, and how she had allowed it to poison our relationship. She apologized for her behavior during the disastrous dinner 6 years ago, admitting that her actions were immature and cruel. She even acknowledged the discomfort she had caused my fiancé, turning to him to say she deeply regretted her flirtation and how inappropriate it was. She confessed that her bitterness stemmed from feeling like she had always come second to me, even in her own eyes. Her vulnerability took me by surprise. For years, I had waited for an apology like this, but I never thought it would come. Hearing her take responsibility for her actions brought a flood of emotions I wasn't prepared for. I cried as she spoke, feeling both the weight of the past and the faint hope of reconciliation. When she finished, she didn't ask for forgiveness. She simply said she needed to take accountability for her actions, whether or not I chose to forgive her. It was an honest moment, and for the first time, I saw my sister as someone who wanted to change. Though I wasn't ready to completely let go of the hurt, her words opened the door to something I thought was impossible, a fresh start. As my wedding day approached, I made the difficult decision to exclude my parents. Their repeated refusal to acknowledge their role in our fractured relationship left me with no other choice. When I informed them, they reacted with anger, accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish. It hurt deeply, but I stood firm. I wanted my wedding day to be about love and peace, not conflict. Despite the pain of my parents' absence, the day was beautiful. Surrounded by close friends, family members, and my new husband, I felt an overwhelming sense of joy. My sister's presence, however, was the most unexpected part of the day. After years of animosity, she attended with a quiet grace that contrasted sharply with our past interactions. She stayed in the background, respectful and supportive. Her presence felt like a tentative olive branch, a gesture of goodwill that didn't demand anything in return. At one point during the reception, she approached me with a small smile and said, "You look beautiful." It was a simple statement, but it carried a weight of sincerity that I hadn't felt from her in years. Throughout the evening, I found myself reflecting on how far we had come. Just months ago, I couldn't have imagined her being part of such an important day. Yet there she was, not as a source of conflict, but as a quiet reminder that healing was possible. My parents' absence lingered in the back of my mind, but I chose to focus on the positives. This was my day, a celebration of love, growth, and new beginnings. And in that moment, I felt at peace with my choices. After the wedding, life felt different, not just because I was starting a new chapter with my husband, but because the seeds of reconciliation had been planted with my sister. For years, I had convinced myself that our relationship was beyond saving, but her apology and presence at my wedding gave me hope. The scars of our past didn't disappear overnight. There were still moments of hesitation and doubt, and rebuilding trust would take time. But for the first time in years, I felt optimistic. Our communication began slowly, occasional texts, short phone calls, but each interaction felt genuine. Reflecting on our journey, I realized how much our upbringing had shaped the pain we carried. Our parents' insistence on pitting us against each other had robbed us of a bond we could have shared. While I wasn't ready to forgive them, I hoped that one day I might find the strength to confront them again. For now, I focused on the present. My husband and I were building a life together, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for us. My sister was slowly becoming part of that circle. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, and that was enough. As we prepared for our honeymoon, I looked forward to the future, not just with my husband, but with the possibility of a new relationship with my sister. It wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, I believed it was worth the effort. Thank you for tuning into Ditch Relation Tales. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping tales. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the drama-filled stories we bring your way.